Warning, F-bombs are armed and will be dropped. If you cannot explain what you're doing as a process, it's not a process. That's an old axiom, and today I'm going to address a few of those. I'm going to start with caliber definitions because they don't actually have any scientifically provable meaning. Or do they? Let's start with the size of a pistol round. Now this is a snap cap, and this is a 40 caliber snap cap. All right. So how big does a bullet have to be before you could say it's not a pistol anymore? There is no hard and fast rule, and there's no way to set a hard and fast rule, but there is a way to say, no, this is not a pistol anymore. And it's right here. All right. This is a standard pistol magazine. As you can see, we have one, we have a snap cap right there. This magazine is small enough I can easily wrap my hand around it. It's also small enough that it can fit in the grip of a pistol. My hand will wrap around it, and I can still use it. This pistol round is therefore small enough that the magazine and the grip, or combined in the case of the suppressed pistol from World War II, well rod. In the case of the well rod, that you could grip it. Okay, I guess that would make it a pistol round. If it's too big to do that, it's probably not a pistol round anymore. That would bring us to our rifle rounds. Now this is a 223, 5.56, I'm not sure which, rifle round. This is a 10 round mag. You've seen this one before in my why 10 round mags are dangerous video. And as you can see, my hand really can't wrap around that too well. 7.6239 mags are theoretically just small enough you might be able to do it. Theoretically, but you're still kind of struggling to reach the trigger. As far as I know, 357 in length is the longest I've ever heard of where you could actually achieve this magazine standard. And I believe 44 caliber pistol rounds are actually too big. So are they pistol or rifle rounds? I'll let the rest of the world figure that out in the meantime. All right, so we've established kind of some parameters for the difference between a pistol, right, and a rifle. That's easy. Now, how do you define a intermediate versus a rifle versus a high caliber round? Well, that's actually a damn good question, and nobody actually has a perfect answer. But the system that I do use, first of all, there's no such thing as an intermediate round. It just doesn't exist. There's no scientific way to say everything above this is a rifle round and everything below this is an intermediate, or, well, is an intermediate round at very least. Well, why not? Because you can't really define what intermediate means. There have been a few ideas floated around. The one that came closest was a definition based on range of 250 to 550, I believe it was, yards. That was great. And then I went looking through my own notes. I almost went with that myself, but then I went looking through my own notes and realized, wait a second, you could take a 30-06, which is the M1 Garand, a rifle round, reduce the powder, and get it into that 250 to 550 range. Now what? And by the way, you can actually reduce it without modifying the rifle. That was the part that I was like, yeah, that didn't work anymore. To emphasize that point, there's a really great video that will be going up pretty soon. It's actually already out there. Deuces and Guns did a video on black powder reload with a 300 blackout. Now, 300 blackout is a little bit smaller, about 3/4, I think, of the length of a 30-06, but it's actually roughly the same diameter. His AR-15 was cycling, but it wasn't cycling properly. Small modifications, and it would have continued working. So, if you can get me a definition for the difference between an intermediate and a rifle round that I can't get around, you know, like reducing the powder charge, I think it's 10%. Let me know in the comments. You might just win a cookie or $100. What about when you go past rifle and into high caliber? Well, wait a minute. 30-06 is a high caliber. No, it's not. 30-06 and maybe slightly larger. It's the largest size rifle that a mean adult male can handle. Now, that doesn't mean average. That actually means the largest single grouping. There's a lot of people, a lot of adult males who can handle smaller, all the way down to theoretically a 25 caliber rifle. There is a small group that can handle a much larger than 30-06. Off the top of my head, I can think of 3. One was from the American Revolution. And I do not kid anybody in the least. This man actually picked a cannon barrel up off of a damaged gun carriage, put it up on his shoulder, and carried it. No one would believe that story, but George Washington himself wrote a commendation for the man. I'll get his name in the comments. Description, rather. Okay. That's a big boy. That is a big, huge man, right? He probably could have shoulder fired an M2 on automatic. More recently, there was a Army technical sergeant in World War II, I don't know his name, I can't find his name, who did that on an experimental M2, and the Army said, this is great, but we don't really need it. Put that project off to the side. Much more recently, there was an ISIS fighter. Now, I only know his nickname is The Beast. It's because he's a beast. He did shoulder fire an M2 Browning HMG machine gun. There's actual witnesses of this man doing exactly that. And the man must be. I'm sure that his neck is almost as big around as my torso. Okay, the man is huge. I've seen one still frame of a video of him doing exactly that. Now, what he was doing was holding it down like this at the time, as opposed to up on his shoulder. But that's okay. You know, he was still firing an M2 under conditions that no other living human being that I know of could. That's a pretty out there man. So let's ignore these any further. Focus on this mean. The mean of what an adult male can fire and do so repeatedly and reliably is roughly 30-06. It's actually a little bit bigger. I think 451 is the largest rifle round that's ever been in general production. And that's about it. Okay, well, then World War I comes along. Now, everybody's using 30-06 or roughly the same caliber range. France was using, I think, the 7mm Lebel. Germany was using a 7mm, and I think Britain was using they were using the 303 as their principal rifle round. Again, these are roughly in that upper end of what an adult male can handle. And then tanks come along. That upset the apple cart completely because nothing these infantrymen could do to it was doing anything. They were literally just bouncing off. The Germans desperately came up with a 50 caliber single shot rifle, the Tank Guevere. I know there's a video of a woman firing it, and I think she fires a total of 3 rounds on video and probably more off video. But it's not the sort of thing a standard human can repeatedly and consistently handle. Once you hit about those 5 rounds, anybody's going to start to feel the burn or the pop. But they developed that round specifically to punch through British tank armor. That's when you start to hit those high caliber range. When it's designed to punch through tank armor of World War I, yeah, that's pretty much it. Modern body armor, however, can stop that bullet. Now I can talk about that a little bit because there's other videos, including, and please forgive me, Jerry Mishlik shooting a set of armor plate, bullet didn't penetrate. If it had been worn by somebody, he'd probably still die from having been hit that hard. But the armor did not penetrate. Where does that leave us? Well, that might just leave us back to square one. What is high caliber? And we might have to start over and redefine how high caliber from a whole new test set. I can describe what I'm doing as a process, and if you cannot, then it is not a process. If you can, tell me, and you might just win $100 out of me.